What's up, I'm Ijemma and welcome back to my channel. Another video on the API, of course. This video I want to talk about documentation because we need documentation. We always need documentation. It is a core pillar in development, and I feel like a lot of times documentation, commenting in general, kind of just falls through the cracks while you're making a lot of rapid developments. So for this video, I'm going to walk you through the documentation solution that the Igbo dictionary API uses in order to make documenting the code and general decisions a lot quicker and easier to maintain. So I guess I'm going to split up this video into two different parts. The first part is going to be a closer look at the technical documentation solution and how we use Swagger in order to generate our docs. And the second part is going to be focusing on the GitHub issues and documentation that's found in the conversations that happen within each issue thread. With that being said, let's take a closer look at the Swagger docs. Our technical docs are generated using Swagger.io, and more specifically, we're using version 2 in order to generate our documentation. So if you go to the Swagger site, you can see that they have pretty extensive documentation on creating documentation, which is pretty nice. The reason why this project uses version 2 instead of version 3 is because version 2 allows you to use a JSON object and structure it in such a way to generate your Swagger site. So to put this into perspective of the project, I'm going to show you how we actually generate a Swagger site within the API itself. So if you go into the Igbo API project and then go into server.js, you can see that we have a dedicated route called docs that uses a Swagger UI.serve middleware in order to serve a Swagger site. So the structure that's going on here is that whenever a user requests the docs route, Swagger UI is going to serve whatever we have specified to serve. So what we're saying here in this final argument is that we want to serve a site that's following the Swagger docs specification. Swagger docs is an object that I created that lives inside of our config file. If you go into config, you can see that we have Swagger docs that's getting exported, which is actually assigned to our docs variable, which is an object that comes from us spreading our Swagger doc object along with including our Swagger objects. I'll start with Swagger objects since it's in the same file, and then we'll move over to Swagger document. Swagger options includes basic information about our project that we want to render in our site, like the title of our project, the version, and its description. And then we also want to provide the host of our API. This host variable is going to change depending on our docs environment, whether it's in production or if it's in local development or testing. So this object gets included in our docs objects, but what about Swagger document? Swagger document comes from Swagger.json, which is a massive file. So altogether, this Swagger.json file is almost 900 lines of code, and it includes basic information that allows us to generate our Swagger site. And then we provide more information about our site. This information is going to get overwritten by our Swagger options found in our config file. After that, I specify more information like the tags that are going to be used in order to organize our routes, some schema definitions like what a word looks like, what the shape of an example looks like, word suggestion, example suggestion, generic word, and so on. After that, we can head over to the paths section, which defines all of the paths that are available in our API. So we have our words path, that takes in a word ID variable, examples, example ID, word suggestion ID, example suggestions, and this can go on for a long time. So these are all the routes that are currently available in our API. If we want to take a closer look at one of our routes, words, we can see that we have different methods that are available. We have our get and we have our post request methods. Inside there, I specify the summary that's going to show up on our site. And then within each method type, I just provide some information that's going to get rendered into our site, like its summary, its description, the tags that this route belongs to. So our words route is in production. And then I specify the parameters that a user can pass in to get a specific subset of our database's data. After that, I also specify the response type that comes from this API, and I say a 200 returns the schema, which is an array that contains all of our words. And this structure keeps going on for our words route with the word ID variable, examples with our example ID. You can see here that I have a put method, and then it has a summary, a description, tags, and this route is actually in development instead of production, so the entire world can't see it or use it. And then it specifies the list of parameters that it can handle. So we can take in an example ID and it provides a description, where this parameter will live, the schema that it uses, which is just a string, and if it's required or not. So this will go on for however many routes you have inside of your database. If you have a lot more routes and you have a lot more routes that take in a lot more information, it's probably the best idea to separate out this Swagger.json file into multiple different files so it's easier to write and just maintain. But this is a solution that's been working right now for this site. So to see this information in action, I can start up a local instance of the project by running a yarn dev and then heading over to the docs route. So once we hit the docs route, the Swagger UI middleware is going to serve up this automatically generated site. So we didn't have to worry about any of the HTML or the CSS. Swagger just handles all that for us out of the box. And you can see that Swagger takes our app's name, its version number, and its base URL depending on the environment, along with the description of our project. It even categorizes our routes based off of the tags that we've described, like production, development, and even test. At the very bottom, you can see our schemas are down below, and they're called models in this case, and we have our word schema, example schema, all the way down to generic word. The nice thing about Swagger is that they color coordinate our routes, so get is blue, post is green, put is orange, and delete is red. You can also see more information, like if a word ID is required or if a body is required, and we can also see what gets returned back to us in our responses body. So this makes it really easy for developers just to add more documentation down the line because there's no need for managing a whole other site or even making sure that that site looks nice. Documentation is by far the least glamorous thing to talk about for programming, but I really do like the idea of having docs that I can quickly reference whenever I'm dealing with a new route, I'm developing a new route, or if I'm making changes to an existing route. So this is part 1, taking a look at technical docs. Part 2 of this video is going to be taking a high-level look at the way that we track discussions inside of GitHub using issues. So at the end of all of these videos, I always say if you want to open up an issue or if you want to take on an issue, what I mean by that is if you go to the GitHub repo for this project and you click on the Issues tab, you can see all the issues that currently exist in the project at this moment in time. The term issues sounds really aggressive in the context of talking about working on tasks, but at a very high level, issues can be multiple things. Issues can be literal bugs that pop up in your code, or issues can just be a conversation starter about a future feature that should be included in the project. So issues are just a great way to track general discussions about any topic that's related to the project. So you can see inside of the Issues tab, there is currently 26 issues, and all of these range from different topics like documentation, enhancement, which is adding a feature to the project, good first issue, or even bug if something popped up that was unexpected. These are all labels that can be applied to different issues in order to allow people to quickly know what this issue is about and why it exists. You can also see all the closed issues. GitHub doesn't allow you to actually technically delete issues, you can only close them. So we can see that we have 77 closed issues, which a lot of them are closed by me. But there are situations where we do have issues that might have a lengthy discussion and a back and forth just to clarify and get more information. So you can see with this issue, we have scrape 1,000 most common Igbo words, and I open up this issue saying that this is something that we need to work on for parsing and scraping. And then this is one contributor who was showing me his work and asking me questions to make sure that he understands the whole idea behind the issue. Usually when people write out issues, they aren't the most clear, so it's always great to ask follow-up questions or any clarifying questions. So the great thing about this thread is that by the end of it, you can get a good sense of what happened since we closed this ticket with a PR that was merged a couple of days ago. You can see the person who was contributing to the conversation on the original issue was able to open and eventually merge their PR into the codebase. So this is a great way to track the general discussion of what was going on with the specific issue that originated about a month ago. GitHub Issues is great for just tracking general conversations about work that's being done on a project. Everything that concerns the project should be captured by issues so people can see a public conversation and reference back to it if they ever just want to refresh their memory. But that's it on documentation and creating documentation with Swagger and creating issues on GitHub. Again, not the most glamorous topic, but I think it's super important to get in the habit of tracking discussions in a public domain with like GitHub Issues or even a Trello board, and also figuring out how to automatically generate docs using Swagger or any other alternative. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much if you made it this far for watching an entire video on documentation and how the Igbo API project uses documentation. If you want to contribute, you know where the issues page is for the repo. The link is down in the description box below. You can add an issue, you can contribute to an issue, have a conversation about an existing issue, whatever your issue is. I'm also on Twitter where you can send me a DM about this project or JavaScript and web development in general. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next one.